Hi everyone, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today we take a look at 3 stories related to global warming: hungry locusts in East Africa, ice melt in Antarctica, and the future of the world's largest doomsday food vault. You can join the conversation really easily in our live YouTube chat or on Twitter. Authorities in East Africa are racing to counter swarms of voracious locusts who have been eating their way through the region, including Kenya, Ethiopia and Somalia. Locusts are not uncommon to the Horn of Africa, but the recent surge is the worst the region has seen in decades. The rise of these insects have been attributed to warmer temperatures. If left unchecked, the locusts could multiply more than 400 times by June. The United Nations has warned that this would decimate crops in a region already struggling with food insecurity. Officials at the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, also known as FAO, are sounding the alarm.
It is a big threat. It is the biggest threat. Much as we say drought is a threat, much as we say that floods can be a threat, but if we are trying to rank them, I think they're all threat, but desert locust situation is an unprecedented threat on food security.
Joining us to discuss the locusts, Fatuma Jama Saeed. Fatuma is the Ethiopian representative of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. Fatuma, this is fascinating. Our audience around the world have been looking at these pictures wondering, what happened? Why is this happening?
This is happening because the locusts are finding unusual wet area in the region. We have seen cyclones that has happened. Actually, they were there since June, July. The locust was present in Ethiopia since June, July 2019. But the situation was deteriorated severely in December when a cyclone hit the region. Flooding, in addition to the flooding and the other disaster, locusts multiplied. In no time, from Ethiopia, now 9 countries in the region are affected. And 3 of those are worst affected. That is Ethiopia, Somalia, and Kenya.
Fatuma, what is it like? What is that experience like of seeing that many locusts in one place at one time?
For someone who is not used to locusts, this is very scary. It's like seeing a dark cloud as large as 5, 10, 20 square kilometers, so large that sometimes it can even block the light from the sun. So you have seen those pictures, and it's very scary. In addition to the damages it can cause to cropland, to pasture, to nature. So unfortunately, not only it's scary, but it is causing serious damages.
I want to bring into our conversation a Kenyan farmer called Esther, who explains what it is like from a farmer's perspective. Let's have a look.
We depend heavily on this farming season. We have 2 seasons, but the season beginning in April is short and not as productive. We depend a lot on this season, and we worry that the locusts will destroy our harvest, and we end up remaining hungry through the rest of the year, waiting for October for the next cropping season.
So Fatuma, this is a real issue for farmers right now, and we are in a critical part of the season for either harvest or planting. Tell us more about that.
See, unfortunately, this is very serious because it's coinciding with the starting of the planting season. So as the swarms are spreading and the eggs are hatching and multiplying, the farmers are planting their crops, and they expect to harvest, for example, in the case of Ethiopia, in June. Unfortunately, this is the time when the eggs that are hatching will be mature swarms that again will be affecting their harvest. So you can imagine this. Some of these families and households in these communities are already facing severe food insecurity. And at the time where they are hoping to get their food, it will be eaten by these swarms.
Yeah, this occurred to me, Fatuma, and you can tell me how, if this is a shallow response to the locust issue. So on YouTube, Proud Cinephile says, and asking you right now, as he's watching you on TV, eat the locusts, no more world hunger, locust population under control, problem solved. Is that even feasible? People do eat the locusts, but on this level, this amount, how would you do that?
People do eat the locust in some parts of the world. It is not the case in Ethiopia, and actually, even if people eat the locust, unfortunately, they cannot eat such large quantities that will curb the invasion. Unfortunately, and in Ethiopia, people do not eat the locust.
Ah, okay. I'm wondering, you know that phrase, turning lemons into lemonade. I wondered if you could turn locusts into lunch. Could this be an opportunity to have a new industry that comes out of there being more locusts than you've ever seen before?
Unfortunately, not in this part of the world. I've lived in some parts of West Africa, for example, where locusts are eaten, but not in Ethiopia and not in most part of East Africa.
And they do taste good. All right, let me share this with you. When we ask our online community, what stories should we cover? This is one of the stories that we were asked to cover. Here, Mademoiselle Kunstler, who is actually a Tatenda, you're about to hear from on video. Right here, she talks about the locusts affecting people's lives in East Africa. And then she followed up with a video comment and a question for you, Fatuma. Let's have a listen.
Hola, ajstream. My name is Tatena, and I guess my question would be, what can we do in terms of better preparedness in the future so that this catastrophe does not take toll on our food security and livelihoods? How best can we be prepared if something like this happens to us again? Because I can understand the toll it has taken to farmers in East Africa. So how best can we deal with this?
Preparing for the future, how best can you deal with this?
That's a very relevant question. It's all, the key is preparedness. If at the beginning of this invasion, if the countries, the government and the community were prepared, maybe we would not have been here today. So preparedness is the key. Surveillance, monitoring, as soon as community sees or ministry experts in the field see breeding sites of locusts, if there are mechanisms to send the alert and for the government to immediately send teams to spray those eggs, then that will be the best. But unfortunately, resources is the key.
Yeah.
And this is why now FAO is calling upon the international community to help this government. Government are leading the control operation. At the same time, we are building the capacity. We're helping them to train the experts in the field. And this is why it's key. Preparedness and most importantly, ownership and leadership from the affected countries.
So just my practical brain is just thinking, so what are you doing right now? Are you spraying these huge swarms of locusts? What are you doing?
Yeah, right now, with the limited resources we have received, because as you may have seen in the news, FAO has appealed for 138 million. So far, roughly 50 million has been received. And this, we are using it to help countries to spray through. There are aerial sprayer with plane. There are ground spraying, so which is teams that are protected and they go and they spray. Community is mobilized to work with the ministries and the government experts and tell them where they see the eggs are hatching. So this is what we are doing right now. But it's also extremely important that we think of those farmers already whose crop has been affected, and those that we know their crop will be affected.
Fatuma Diama Sayed from FAO, we thank you very much for joining us. I'm just going to wrap up here on my laptop here. This is from Yiga. Yiga is watching the show. Yiga says that locusts, melting ice, are a sign of climate change. The locusts are called desert locusts. They live where the temperatures are high because of the increase in global temperatures. Locusts can be everywhere. Melting of ice is because of global warming, which we can reverse. Yiga, thank you. You've done the bridge between one story and the next story that we're about to do as we turn to Antarctica. The continent experienced its hottest day on record last month during a heat wave that has been driving dramatic ice melt in the South Pole. It was 18 degrees Celsius on the 6th of February, the same temperature as Los Angeles. Scientists are warning that the consequences of rapidly melting glaciers could be disastrous. Sea levels would rise, endangering coastal towns, and there might be no going back.
So with ice sheets, it's very easy to melt them. This happens very fast, but building them back up again takes thousands and thousands of years. So what we're seeing with the West Antarctic ice sheet is that the starting of the melt, once we reach a certain threshold, will continue despite our efforts to stop it. And so that's why it's really pressing and really important to start acting on this, the carbon, sooner rather than later, to try and prevent this irreversible change.
Joining us to discuss what's happening in Antarctica, Claire Nullis, spokesperson for the UN's World Meteorological Organization in Geneva, Switzerland. Hi there, Claire. I am just wondering, it takes a lot to get meteorologists excited because they're very calm people in general. And when you saw this temperature spike, what was your reaction? What was the WMO's reaction to this?
I think the initial reaction was, whoa, this should not be happening. This is not normal. But then, we as meteorologists, as scientists, started looking for the reasons to find out why. And there are two basic reasons. So one is the short-term weather phenomenon. The week in Antarctica where we saw the very, very warm temperatures, it coincided with there being what we call a föhn wind. This is a warm wind which comes down mountain slopes. So that jacked up the temperatures. That was the immediate trigger, as it has been when we've seen record temperatures in the past. But underlying that is obviously the long-term climate change because of what we as humans are doing with our greenhouse gas emissions.
There are two satellite pictures that I want to show our audience. So one is on February the 4th. So we are looking at Eagle Island on February the 4th, and then we're going to go from that picture to 9 days later, exactly the same place. Look, you can actually see the melt that's actually happened. I'm wondering, Claire, what that melt, maybe what that 9 days would have done to other places around the world, to the sea level, to our environment, if this continues to happen?
It certainly changed the face of Antarctica in the short term. We need to add, now we're heading into autumn in the Antarctica, so we're seeing, very, very cold temperatures again, which are normal for this time of year. But the implications for sea level rise are profound and they are long-lasting. So at about the same time as we saw these very high temperatures, there was an episode which in meteorological terms we call a big carving event. So it was basically a huge chunk of a glacier carved off one of the big glaciers in Antarctica, the Pine Island Glacier. And it then sort of shattered into lots of smaller pieces of ice. They will now melt, and the implications of those, melting mini glaciers for sea level rise are quite significant. If all the ice in the Antarctic ice sheet melted, and we're not saying that this is going to happen, and it's certainly not going to happen anytime soon. Scientists predict it could add up to 60 meters of sea level rise. As I said, that will not happen. But we are seeing on a year-by-year basis that the melting of the Antarctic ice sheet and the melting of the Greenland glaciers are contributing an ever bigger amount to sea level rise.
Claire, I want to go back to Yiga, who's watching us right now. And Yiga said on a tweet as he was watching the show, melting of ice is because of global warming, which we can reverse. He sounds confident there. Is that even possible? Can we do it?
Because of the laws of physics, the carbon dioxide which we are currently emitting into the atmosphere is going to stay there for a very, very long time. It's going to stay there in the oceans for even longer. So certainly we cannot reverse climate change, global warming certainly within my lifetime. But what we can do is we can slow it. We can prevent it, becoming totally out of control, totally run away. And to do that, we really do need to take drastic and very urgent climate action to cut greenhouse gas emissions.
Are you seeing that happening, though, Claire? It's interesting today, all of our stories are connected to global warming, and you see in real life the impact of what global warming is doing around different places on our Earth and in our environment. Are you seeing enough climate action to stop more rapid melting from Antarctica?
In a word, no. And this is why the United Nations Secretary General, the World Meteorological Organization Secretary General, many other leaders of UN organizations are saying we really do need to step up the levels of ambition. Now there's been enough talk. We really do now need to translate this into action. We know what we need to do. Science has informed us of that, and now we just need to do it.
All right, Claire Nulles from the World Meteorological Organization in Geneva, Switzerland. Thank you very much for joining us on the stream. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
And now on to a bit of good news. I know you could do with some. The largest doomsday food vault in the world has just accepted its millionth seed variety. Here's why that is so important.
When this material is gone and you have no backup, then it's gone forever. What's dead is dead. What's lost is lost. You can't retrieve what is dead. So the vault is meant to be there in case that anything goes wrong around the world. We always hope it doesn't go wrong, but unfortunately things do go wrong. And that is why it is comforting to know that we have backups in Svalbard.
The Norway-based Svalbard Global Seed Vault has been collecting seed donations from around the world since 2008 and aims to safeguard food security in the event of a catastrophe. The building is located in one of the coldest places on Earth, 1,000 kilometres from the North Pole, but the facility was recently forced to complete a €20 million renovation to protect against rising temperatures. Joining us to discuss the vault is Lise Luca Stephenson from Alnarp in Sweden. Lise is the Executive Director of the Nordic Genetic Resource Centre of Norgen, which works with Norway's government to manage the seed vault. Lise, it's great to have you. A couple of things that you need to just make very clear. A seed vault and a gene bank. Tell me how they're connected. What do they do?
Yes, I do that. The seed vault is actually a safety net for the world's gene banks. And this is about gene banks. It sounds a little bit, what is this? Well, it's not so, it's not so dangerous or anything. It's really a place for plant genetic resources where you store seeds. So it's all about seeds that will grow into plants. And these gene banks, we have around 1,700 public gene banks in the world. They can make a safety duplicate of their seed collection, and then they can save this collection in the seed vault.
All right.
And then if something happened to the gene bank, and that could happen, and it has happened, it could be fires, flooding, or civil wars, then there's a possibility to go to the seed vault and retrieve your whole collection of seeds there. And then you will be able to establish a new seed bank. And seed banks are really important because they are, holding the potential for growing new plants. And in these times of climate change, we really need new plants that are more adaptable to the climate change. So these seeds hold a lot of possibilities. They hold potential for the future. They can either be that they're more drought tolerant, or they are resistant to pests or diseases. It could also be that they just feel much better in a higher CO2 level. So we need those seeds for the future and the food security and for the preserving acro biodiversity, which is really declining because we have you can say, a biodiversity crisis where we are losing our biodiversity in the world. So that's why the seed vault is so important.
Lise, I went to your Twitter account to find some video, and I found here a number of people who are making deposits into the seed vault. I was like, who puts a deposit into a seed vault? Who does that? And you answered me right here on your Twitter account. Let's have a look at some of the people who are putting their seeds in this seed vault.
We are going to deposit 301 accessions in the Svalbard Global Seed Wallet.
25,500 wild rice species.
Today we're depositing a wildflower meadow mix.
I'm bringing in a collection of 1,100 accessions, which are composed of a diversity of cereal crops.
Everybody looks very excited about doing this, which is great. It's like going to the library, giving the library a book rather than taking one out. But Lise, there have been a number of situations where people have retrieved these seeds. Syria is an example of that. Will you tell us about the Aleppo story?
I will. Hopefully we never need to take something out of the seed vault. But we have done that because due to the civil war in Syria, the gene bank in Aleppo, a really important gene bank for crops like wheat and barley, they had to flee the gene bank. And luckily, the gene bank had actually deposited a multiplication, a safety copy of the gene bank at the Svalbard Global Seed Vault. So they went up to the seed vault, colleagues from Morocco and Lebanon, and they got this copy. And then they have been back in Morocco and Lebanon, and they have multiplied the seeds. So they have actually established this gene bank once again. So when there is a possibility, then when the civil war is over, and if they decide to establish the gene bank in Aleppo, they will actually be able to do so. And this is very important because these seeds that comes from this area is really the epicenter of wheat and barley, and they're so important for because wheat and barley is some of the staple crops that we really live from in this world. So I think this really shows the importance of the Svalbard Global Seed Vault.
Let me go to Rikan. Rikan is on YouTube right now, and Rikan is reacting to you, Lise, and telling us the story about the Svalbard Seed Vault. Rikan says, I love the idea of the Seed Vault, and then goes on to talk about why it is so important, echoing your comments as well. But there's a lot of enthusiasm for saving seeds, replicating seeds. Why do you think that is, Lise?
Because actually it represents life. I mean, we are holding the life sort of in our hands. We take maybe plants a little bit to granted, but we actually get oxygen from plants. We get food from plants. We get feed for our animals from plants, and we get fibers, and we even get pharmaceuticals sometimes, and so that makes seeds so important. And I think when you first understand this, it never really leaves you. So the whole preservation of that. And then in many countries, there are local farming community that are totally dependent on having enough seeds and having the right seeds. So they really take very good care of that in local community seed banks as well.
Lise, very quick question, because we're right at the end of the show, so I'm going to ask you to answer this very quickly. Sam on Twitter says, who does the depositing, and do they reach every continent and also every country? Quick response, Lise, go ahead.
Yes. 200 countries around the world have already gene banks from there, have deposited their seeds. So it's truly a global place. When you're inside there, you really feel somehow that the whole world is connected in there. You see that wooden boxes from North Korea is just placed just beside those boxes from the United States. And it's a pretty cool place and very peaceful.
All right. Lise, I didn't think I'd be so excited to talk about seeds kept in very cool places, but you proved me wrong. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being on the stream today. And that's our show. I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.